Hi, I'm Kristen McCracken, and we are doing our very first interview on behalf of Kino Germany Now, which is the digital media brand of German films here in the US. Please bear with us as we navigate this new technology, and we're happy that our first guest today is one of Germany's most acclaimed stage and screen actresses, Maria Schrader, who joins us from Berlin. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
You may know Maria from the Golden Globe nominated Aimée Jaguar, for which she won the Silver Bear for Best Actress at the Berlin Film Festival, or from her starring role in the award-winning series Deutschland 83 and Deutschland 86, which is on Hulu here in America. And I hear there's a new one coming out, so we'll talk maybe a second about that too. Maria is also an award-winning director. Her most recent film, Stefan Zweig, Farewell to Europe, won the Audience Award at the European Film Awards and was selected as Austria's Oscar submission for Best Foreign Language Film in 2017. But today we're here to talk about Unorthodox. Maria directed the 4-part limited series that has become a major hit on Netflix since its release a month ago. First of all, how did you tell us how you got involved with Unorthodox?
Well, the showrunner of Unorthodox is called Anna Winger, and she already was the head writer and showrunner on Deutschland 83 and 86. Okay. So this is how we met. Actually, we knew each other from before a little bit, but this is how we got to know each other and liked each other and found out that we shared a common or a mutual view onto filmmaking and shared taste. And then she saw my movie Stefan Zweig. And from that moment on, we kind of had this plan to also work together in this new constellation, me not being the actress, but also being the director. And then she came to me with the book Unorthodox by Deborah Feldman. And I read it, and it was very clear right away that this was our project.
Great. And so were you involved in the casting? I mean, Shira Haas is amazing. And can you just tell us a little bit about how you found her and maybe a couple of the other cast members?
Yes, of course. I was involved in the casting. I was also involved in finding the team members and the heads of departments. And we searched worldwide for the actors because they had to be great actors. And on top of it, they had to be able to speak in Yiddish and treat this language as a mother tongue, and only 1 million people maybe worldwide speak Yiddish nowadays, and most of them live in very religious circumstances, so it was a tough one. So we had casting directors in New York, in Israel, in Tel Aviv, in Germany, and they reached out to the eastern part of Europe and in London. And these casting directors would make tapes of various people, with specific scenes. So Anna and Alexa, the co-creator, and me, we would get tapes like on a daily basis. We saw so many young actors, young actresses, specifically for the main parts, of course, because they were the most important to find at first. And it was very interesting because I saw so many girls, and then I saw Shira, and it was special. And it was like, this is Esther. And after watching her tape, I was trying to write an email to Anna that she should watch this particular girl. And in the moment I wanted to push the send button, I received an email by Anna saying, please watch Shira Haas. It was a glorious moment because we instinctively reacted in the same way. And it's also a beautiful aspect that I didn't know anything about Shira before. I didn't know that she was already, worked with Jessica Chastain, has been in the famous series Stiesel. I didn't know. I hadn't seen it. So it was kind of a virgin moment of discovering someone. And then I went to Israel. And then I met also Amit Rahav together with Shira. Together with Shira, we met quite a few young men, and we got to know each other. And it was just beautiful to work with her. She's very, very special.
I think Stiesel is going to have a resurgence here. Everyone wants to watch that now because of her. So because of you. bringing her to us. So, so the film is set in both Brooklyn and Berlin, but I know from watching the wonderful making of documentary that's also on Netflix, that you rebuilt a lot of the Williamsburg locations, the interiors in Berlin. But I am assuming that you shot the external scenes in Brooklyn. What was that like in Williamsburg for you to go to Williamsburg and shoot those?
Well, we've been in Williamsburg during preparation for research twice. And of course, it's a sensitive and quite unknown situation to follow up a story within a community who does not want to be in the center of the public eye. You know, they really don't want film cameras around their neighborhood or on the sidewalks. So it was always a question how to approach without being violating or being an intruder.
Mm-hmm.
So we tried we did have some access to also private homes through our wonderful Eli Rosen, who plays the rabbi, and he's an ex-Satmar. He lived that life and he got married in this community before he left, and he became an actor, and he still has friends there, and they were very willing to talk to us. And I think it's also a duty, especially for the director, to first of all try to get to know and understand. And the moment you approach people with open curiosity and some humble respect for, you know, unknown way of life, at least to me, unknown way of life, then there is a possibility. And of course, we stole some shots. We drove by with cars, hidden cameras. Of course, you cannot recognize people without them wanting to be part of the film. So, and then we reenacted, for instance, the lobby scenes of the housing projects where the newlywed couple lives in a complete different part of Brooklyn, and we brought the actors there and the extras. So, you know, it's a combination of being there and recreating it at some other place.
Great. And I also, in the documentary, it's very interesting. The whole wedding scene was very fascinating about all the details of that. So I encourage people to watch that. We asked our audience on Facebook for some questions, and so the first of all was, someone wants to know, what was it, and I would like to know too, what was it like to direct a series in which the character speaks so many languages or several languages? So what were the challenges of directing scenes in languages you didn't speak, or did you learn Yiddish along with your actors? How did that work?
Well, first of all, Yiddish is, you know, it's a little bit of German in there. Yeah, you recognize words, but actually I directed in the Stefan Zweig movie. There were 7 languages involved, and I don't find it very difficult.
Seven?
I memorized the lines. You know, I know exactly when I come to the set in the morning, I know the scenes by heart. I know what they're talking about. And so it's not difficult for me. Maybe it's sometimes even easier because beyond the language, there's an emotional expression, and you know what this is about, and you have maybe a more sensual feeling to the truthfulness of the moment, if you're not too particular about this word and that word.
And you have such wonderful actors to express everything so well too.
And they were so well prepared. Yeah.
As a contemporary woman in a modern society, what was it like for you to navigate and tell the story of such a patriarchal, closed society, and finding a sensitivity in that to find the humanity in these people? What was that like for you?
I would say this was the whole trigger of it, because reading Deborah's book was, to me, at least to me, it was an unheard voice. You know, in such a personal and almost intimate way to describe what it was like growing up as a girl in this community, how to be prepared for marriage, the pressure which was put on her shoulders the moment she didn't fulfill the expectations. And I think there's a lot of fictional work, documentary and fictional work about unorthodox, ultra-Orthodox communities, and most of them have men in the center. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, for instance, Menashe, a wonderful movie which just came out, I think, 1.5 years ago, or, you know, the old one, The Chosen. I mean, of course, they're all different communities and you cannot really compare, but I've never heard such a report of, you know, being a woman in this community. And at the same time, as a director, you are like, you know, a mother. It doesn't matter how many children you have, how many actors, you have love for them all. And I also found it very, very important to give at least an insight of the motives of the community. For instance, if they come after her, it might feel evil. At the same time, the moment you know that they want to protect their people from the outside world, which they fear, it becomes a more complex picture. And I don't want it to paint it in black and white and evil and good. It's not what this is about. And I don't think that generally in storytelling this formula works very well. It's always more interesting that you get caught up in, you know, various perspectives and conflicts where you can maybe not like, but at least understand motives of people, even if other people suffer from them. So this was always our thrive to on the one hand side, talk a very specific story of a very specific person. And it is a very specific story because probably if her marriage would have been working very well from the start, she wouldn't have left the society. Mm-hmm. And also Deborah wouldn't have left it. She told me personally. So it is a specific story about an unhappy person while her neighbor might be very happy. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand side, it's of course not a general portrait of that community. It's, you know, this isn't possible in 4 hours of film.
Yeah. What has the feedback been from the Jewish community or the Hasidic community, or did you have any pushback ever at any point, or have you heard positive feedback from within the community? Do they even watch Netflix? Not sure.
You know, the funny thing is personally, I'm not on social media at all. And my dear colleagues and co-workers and actors pity me sometime, and then they send me some breadcrumbs from their, you know, harvest of messages and reactions. And so I spoke to Ellie Rosen, for instance, who still lives in Brooklyn and who's, I think, very well connected to the Orthodox world. And of course, I read messages from ex-Hasidic people who, most of them, seem to totally identify and recognize themselves in at least parts of the story. And also Ellie tells me that he gets enormous positive reactions. Probably there are also critical voices, but generally, I think it's a very, very positive echo.
Great. And most of all, what people most want to know is will there be more episodes? Will we get to continue Esti's story, or is really limited series mean limited series?
I'm afraid I have to disappoint the audience. Yeah, it's a limited series and there will not be a second season. Okay. At least not that I know of. Okay. Not at this point, no.
Okay, thank you. And then we have a few just other questions, more general for you about German films in general, or international film. So what can you tell us your favorite German film you've watched in the last few years that was directed by a woman?
Well, can I name two?
Of course.
It was a very interesting year. The same year Stefan Zweig came out, there was also Toni Erdmann. Mm-hmm. And I adore this movie. And I got friends with Maren. And then there's another movie called Wild. It's by Nicolette Krepitz.
Oh, I saw that. Yes.
And it premiered on Sundance.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a year of us three, you know. In Germany, it was the women's directors' years, and it was beautiful because I really, really, really like both of these films, even though they're so different from each other and so strong. And I enjoyed our ride through the festivals and the interviews. So yeah,
that must have been a special time. Yeah. And can you talk about maybe one of your favorite international films that you saw in Germany in theaters in the last few years?
Well, I was in some screenings of the Berlin Festival earlier this year, and I have to say, what really stayed with me was The Assistant, Kitty Green, with Julia Garner. Mm-hmm. It's an enormous film, I think. I adored it, and think it's so special how she creates this violating atmosphere with so small details and with such an accuracy. It was I was blown away by that. And then I saw a very interesting film, I think, which also premiered at Sundance. It's called Exile, from Visa Morina.
Okay.
It's also a very interesting film. Yeah, these were my strong films of the year of the Berlin Festival so far.
Great.
Yeah.
And then I understand that you finished shooting Deutschland 89.
During editing.
You're an
editor.
Yeah.
While I was editing Unorthodox, I was going to set and shot Deutschland 89 with Anna Winger's husband, actually. He was the showrunner on the 3rd season.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Any hints you can give us?
Well, 83, 86, and then what follows, of course, 89. And what happened 89? The wall came down.
Yeah.
So everyone wants to know what happened to the spies after the Cold War was over. Mm-hmm. And this is what it's about.
That sounds great. Okay, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and we hope you're keeping safe and healthy there in Berlin. And
thank you very much.
And
same to you, to New York, especially.
Yeah. And to our audience, if you haven't seen Unorthodox, please make sure you check it out on Netflix. And please follow Kino Germany now on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.